I remember sitting beside Janessa in the hospital room holding her hand after one of her flare-ups. She looked at me with tired eyes and smiled, telling me we would get through this together. In that moment, I understood what real love meant. But there was someone who should have taught me that lesson long before Janessa ever came into my life. That person was my mother. Instead, she taught me something entirely different, something painful that changed everything. Before we dive into this story, let me know in the comments where you are watching from today. If stories about family love and standing up for what is right resonate with you, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Now, let me take you back to where it all started, the day my mother announced her wedding, and the moment I realized the woman who raised me was not the woman I thought I knew. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and reputations matter more than they should. My parents divorced when I was 12 years old. My father moved across the country and slowly faded out of our lives, reduced to occasional phone calls on birthdays and holidays that eventually stopped altogether. My mother, Gloria, was 54 years old and had built her entire identity around appearances. She worked in real estate, which meant she knew everyone important in our community. She hosted dinner parties, attended charity events, and made sure our family always looked picture perfect from the outside. My younger sister, Courtney, who was 25, had learned early on that agreeing with our mother was the path of least resistance. She followed every instruction, every suggestion, every subtle command without question. Growing up, I always felt like my mother's love came with invisible conditions. I had to achieve certain things, behave a certain way, and present myself according to her standards to earn her affection. I told myself that was just how she showed she cared. I made excuses for her for years. 3 years ago, everything in my life shifted when I met Janessa. It was at a small coffee shop in Columbus on a rainy Saturday afternoon. I was 25 at the time, working as a software engineer, drowning in code and deadlines. She was sitting alone by the window reading a book, and when she laughed at something on the page, I could not look away. Her smile was the kind that made the whole room feel warmer. I gathered my courage and walked over to introduce myself. She was an elementary school teacher passionate about her students and had this incredible ability to make everyone around her feel seen. We talked for 3 hours that first day, and I knew I wanted to know everything about her. On our third date, Janessa told me something that she said scared most people away. She had been diagnosed with lupus when she was 20 years old. The disease affected her joints, her skin, and sometimes her kidneys. During flare-ups, she developed a distinctive butterfly-shaped rash across her face and often needed to use a wheelchair because of the pain in her joints. She wanted me to know before things got serious between us, giving me an easy exit if I wanted one. I looked at her across that restaurant table and told her that her illness did not change who she was. It did not diminish her humor, her intelligence, her kindness, or any of the things that made me fall for her. She cried, and I think that was the moment she started to believe I was different. Over the next 2 years, I learned what it meant to love someone through their darkest days. I held her when the pain was unbearable. I drove her to countless doctor appointments. I watched her fight with a strength I had never seen in anyone before, and through it all, she never lost her optimism, never let the disease define her. When I proposed after 2 years together, she said yes through tears of joy, and I felt like the luckiest man alive. Introducing Janessa to my mother was something I had been nervous about. 6 months into our relationship, I brought her home for Sunday dinner. It happened to be during a mild flare-up, so she had some visible redness across her cheeks, though she did not need her wheelchair that day. She was beautiful to me, but I noticed immediately how my mother's eyes lingered on the marks on Janessa's face. Gloria was polite on the surface, the way she always was when she wanted to maintain appearances. But her questions cut deeper than small talk should. She asked if lupus was contagious. She asked if Janessa could have children. She asked if there was any cure. Each question felt like a judgment wrapped in concern. After Janessa excused herself to use the restroom, my mother pulled me aside. Her voice was low, almost conspiratorial. She asked me if I was sure I wanted to tie myself to someone like that. She reminded me I was young, that I had options, that I did not have to settle for someone with so much baggage. I defended Janessa, telling my mother that I loved her, and her health did not change that. Gloria dropped the subject, but from that day forward, there was always a coldness between her and Janessa. My mother never asked about her, never included her in family conversations, never made any effort to know the woman I planned to marry. About a year and a half ago, my mother started dating Douglas. He was 60 years old, owned a large construction company in the area, and had the kind of wealth and status my mother had always been attracted to. She met him through a real estate deal and was immediately taken with his position in the community. When Gloria called to tell me she and Douglas were engaged, her voice was practically glowing with excitement. She announced they would be getting married in 3 months, a large, elaborate affair with over 200 guests. She wanted everything to be perfect, she said. This was her moment, and nothing was going to ruin it. I congratulated her, genuinely happy that she had found someone. I had no idea that her pursuit of perfection would soon tear our family apart. 2 weeks after the engagement announcement, my mother called and asked to speak with me privately. She specifically mentioned that Janessa should not be part of this conversation. I assumed she wanted to discuss my role in the wedding, maybe ask me to be part of the ceremony, or help with planning. I was not prepared for what she actually said. Gloria told me in a calm and matter-of-fact tone that she wanted me to attend the wedding alone. When I asked why, she explained that Janessa might be having a flare-up on the wedding day. She did not want someone in a wheelchair or with visible marks on their face appearing in the wedding photos. Douglas had important business partners attending, she said, and she could not risk anything that might draw attention in the wrong way. I sat in stunned silence, unable to process what I was hearing. I asked her to repeat herself, hoping I had misunderstood. She repeated it, adding that this was her special day, and she had the right to want everything to be perfect. She said Janessa would understand if I explained it properly. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. This was my mother, the woman who raised me, telling me that my fiancé's illness made her an embarrassment. I told her that Janessa was going to be my wife, that she would soon be part of this family, and that excluding her was unacceptable. Gloria's response still echoes in my mind. She said that Janessa was not family yet, and this was her wedding, not mine. That night I drove home in a daze. Janessa could tell immediately that something was wrong. She has always been able to read me better than anyone. When she asked what happened, I debated whether to tell her, wanting to protect her from the cruelty of my mother's words. But Janessa deserved to know the truth. I told her everything. She was quiet for a long moment, and then I saw the tears sliding silently down her cheeks. But instead of anger, she responded with grace that broke my heart. She told me she understood that Gloria was my mother, that I should go to the wedding without her. She did not want to be the reason I lost my relationship with my family. I looked at her, this incredible woman who had faced so much pain in her life with such dignity, and I knew what I had to do. I thought about all the nights she had suffered, all the times she smiled through agony, all the ways she had shown me what strength really looked like. My mother wanted me to abandon her for the sake of photographs. I told Janessa that if she was not welcome, I would not be going either. That same night, I called my mother and told her my decision. The line went silent for a moment before Gloria exploded. She accused me of choosing a stranger over my own flesh and blood. She said Janessa had poisoned me against my family. She demanded I reconsider. I told her that she was the one pushing me away, not the other way around. Then I hung up. What happened next was something I should have anticipated, but naively did not. Within days, my mother had contacted every relative in our family with her version of events. According to Gloria, I was refusing to attend her wedding because I did not approve of Douglas. She told everyone that Janessa was controlling me, isolating me from my family, turning me against the people who loved me. My sister Courtney called me first, her voice sharp with anger. She called me selfish and ungrateful. She said I was breaking our mother's heart over nothing. When I tried to explain the truth, she cut me off, saying Mom would never do something like that, and accusing me of making up excuses. Then came a long text message from my Aunt Patricia, my mother's younger sister. She wrote paragraphs about family loyalty, about how I was throwing away everything for a woman I had only known a few years. She said my mother had sacrificed so much for me, and this was how I repaid her. My grandparents called next, their voices heavy with disappointment. They asked why I was doing this to Gloria, why I could not just put my differences aside for one day. They said family was supposed to stick together no matter what. Not a single person asked to hear my side. Not one family member questioned whether my mother's story was accurate. They all simply believed her, and suddenly I was the villain in a narrative I had not written. I tried over and over to tell them the truth. I explained that Janessa had been excluded because of her illness, that my mother did not want someone who might be in a wheelchair or have visible symptoms at her perfect wedding. Every time I was met with disbelief. They said Gloria would never be so cruel. They said I was lying to justify my own behavior. The isolation was suffocating. These were people I had known my entire life, and they were treating me like a stranger, like someone capable of terrible things. I started to doubt myself, wondering if maybe I was overreacting, if maybe I should just apologize and go to the wedding alone. But then I would look at Janessa, and I would remember why I made this choice. The stress of the situation took its toll on Janessa in ways I had feared. Her body always responded to emotional turmoil, and within 2 weeks of the family fallout, she was in the middle of a severe flare-up. She had to take a week off from teaching something she hated doing because she loved her students so much. I watched her struggle with not just the physical pain, but also with overwhelming guilt. She kept apologizing, kept saying this was all her fault, kept insisting I should just go to the wedding and make peace with my mother. Every time she said it, I could see how much it cost her to offer that, how she was sacrificing her own dignity to try to fix something she had never broken in the first place. I spent that week taking care of her. I made her soup and brought her medication and held her when the pain made her cry. One night, as I sat beside her on the couch, I told her something I needed her to understand. I said she was not the cause of this problem. My mother's lack of compassion was the cause. And I would never, ever let anyone make her feel like she was not worthy of being loved. Janessa wrapped her arms around me and held on tight. She told me that no one had ever protected her the way I did. We made a promise to each other that night. Whatever came next, we would face it together. The 2 weeks leading up to the wedding were eerily quiet. My mother stopped calling entirely. Courtney did not respond to my messages. It was as if I had already been erased from the family, excommunicated for the crime of defending the woman I loved. I received a wedding invitation in the mail addressed only to me. Janessa's name was nowhere on the envelope. I put it in a drawer and never opened it. My friend Marcus, someone I had known since middle school, was invited to the wedding through his parents' connection to Douglas. He and I had stayed close over the years, and he was one of the few people who knew the real story. He kept me updated on the preparations, though. I told him he did not have to. The wedding was going to be extravagant, he said. My mother had hired the most expensive wedding planner in the region. Every detail was being obsessed over. Everything had to be flawless. The rehearsal dinner was scheduled for the Friday evening before the Saturday ceremony. It was being held at an upscale restaurant downtown with about 50 guests, including close family and friends from both sides. I was not there, of course, but what happened that night changed everything. Marcus called me later that evening, his voice shaky with disbelief. He told me I was not going to believe what had just happened. According to Marcus, the dinner started normally enough. My mother was in her element, wearing an elegant cream-colored dress, her hair and makeup perfect, playing the role of the radiant bride. Douglas sat beside her, but Marcus noticed he seemed off. He was drinking more than usual and kept checking his phone with a tense expression on his face. When my mother tried to get his attention or calm him down, he brushed her off. When it came time for the toasts, Douglas stood up with his glass of wine. At first, his words were generic, talking about love and new beginnings and how grateful he was to have found Gloria. But then his tone shifted. His voice grew bitter, and the room went quiet. Douglas said that Gloria was obsessed with perfection. Everything had to be perfect, he said. The photos, the guests, the image. Then he looked around the room and asked if anyone knew why Gloria's own son was not there tonight. My mother tried to stop him reaching for his arm, but Douglas pulled away. He told the entire room that Gloria had forbidden me from bringing Janessa to the wedding because Janessa had a chronic illness, because she might be in a wheelchair, because she might have marks on her face that would ruin the precious photographs. The silence in that room, Marcus said, was deafening. But Douglas was not finished. He revealed that he had overheard a phone conversation Gloria had with a friend 2 weeks earlier. In that conversation, she had called Janessa someone who looked sick, saying she would ruin the wedding aesthetic. She had talked about how Douglas's business associates would judge them if they saw someone like that in the family. Then Douglas dropped another revelation. His own mother was dying of cancer. She was weak and frail and did not have much time left. Gloria had suggested that if his mother looked too ill, perhaps she should not be seated at the head table. Perhaps she should be tucked away somewhere less visible. Douglas said he had kept quiet about that, had told himself maybe he misunderstood. But after hearing how she had treated her own son's fiancé, he could not deny the truth anymore. Gloria did not love him. She loved what he represented: the money, the status, the image. He was just another accessory in her perfect life. He announced in front of everyone that the wedding was off. Then he walked out of the restaurant without looking back. Marcus described the chaos that followed. My mother stood frozen, her face pale, the carefully constructed facade crumbling around her. She tried to explain, tried to say that Douglas was drunk, that he was making things up. But then my Aunt Patricia asked her directly. She asked if it was true that Janessa had been excluded because of her health. My mother could not answer. Her silence was the only confirmation anyone needed. Courtney apparently stared at our mother like she was seeing her for the first time. My grandparents shook their heads in disappointment. Guests began quietly excusing themselves, slipping out one by one until the elegant rehearsal dinner became a wake for my mother's illusions. When Marcus finished telling me everything, I did not know how to feel. I was sitting on the couch with Janessa, who had been listening to my half of the conversation. There was no satisfaction in hearing that my mother had been exposed. No vindication, just a hollow sadness. Janessa squeezed my hand. She did not say anything. She did not have to. 3 days after the rehearsal dinner disaster, my mother finally called me. I answered, not sure what to expect. An apology, maybe. Some acknowledgement of what she had done. Instead, Gloria blamed Douglas for humiliating her. She complained about how he had ruined everything, how she would never be able to show her face in certain circles again. Not once did she mention Janessa. Not once did she acknowledge her own role in what had happened. I listened without interrupting. When she finished, I simply told her that I hoped one day she would understand why I made the choices I made. She hung up without saying goodbye. A few days later, my sister called. Courtney's voice was different, softer than I had heard it in months. She apologized for not believing me. She said she had no idea our mother was capable of such cruelty. She had spent her whole life following Gloria's lead, never questioning, never pushing back. Now she was forced to see our mother clearly, and it was painful. I told Courtney I forgave her. She was as much a victim of our mother's manipulation as anyone. We talked for over an hour, reconnecting in a way we had not done since we were kids. In the weeks that followed, other family members reached out. Aunt Patricia sent a long message, apologizing for judging me without hearing my side. My grandparents invited Janessa and me to dinner, saying they wanted to properly meet the woman I was going to marry. When we went, my grandfather held Janessa's hand and told her she was brave and that she belonged in this family. She cried, and for the first time she felt truly accepted by people who were about to become her relatives. My mother remained silent. I wrote her a letter not out of anger, but out of a genuine desire to leave the door open. I told her that if she ever wanted to change to be part of our lives in a real and meaningful way, I would welcome that. But I would not beg for her love anymore. I would not twist myself into shapes trying to earn something that should be given freely. I never received a response. Janessa and I focused on building our life together. She started a new treatment regimen that helped stabilize her symptoms. We both began seeing a therapist to work through the trauma of everything that had happened. It helped more than I expected, giving us tools to process the pain and move forward without carrying bitterness. We planned our wedding, a small ceremony with only 20 guests. We chose a little chapel outside of town surrounded by trees and wildflowers. We invited only the people who had shown us genuine love and support. Quality over quantity, Janessa said, and she was right. On our wedding day, Janessa walked toward me in a simple white dress. The sun was shining, and for once her skin was clear, no rash to be seen. But I knew that even if she had been in a wheelchair, even if her face had been marked by her illness, she would still be the most beautiful woman in the world to me. I noticed the empty chair where my mother would have sat. There was a moment of sadness, a flicker of grief for the relationship I had always hoped we would have. But I did not let it consume me. Some spaces in our lives cannot be filled, and learning to live with that is part of growing up. As I held Janessa's hands and promised to love her in sickness and in health, those words meant more to me than any traditional vow ever could. I had already proven them true, and I would spend the rest of my life continuing to prove them. This experience taught me lessons I will carry forever. I learned that real love does not come with conditions. The people who truly love you do not ask you to become a perfect version of yourself. They love you with all your scars and struggles and imperfections. I learned that family is not just about blood. Family is the people who show up for you when everything falls apart. Sometimes protecting the ones you love means standing against the very people who raised you. I learned that the pursuit of perfection can cost you everything that actually matters. My mother was so focused on appearances that she drove away her own son and destroyed her chance at happiness with Douglas. The cracks she tried so hard to hide let in nothing but darkness. And I learned that forgiveness is not about excusing what someone did. It is about freeing yourself from the weight of resentment so you can keep living. I do not hate my mother. I feel sad for her for the life she could have had if she had valued love over image. If you are out there right now fighting for someone the world tells you is not worth it, keep fighting. The ones worth loving are rarely the ones who come in perfect packages. They are the ones who stay when staying is hard. They are the ones who see your worst days and love you anyway. Janessa taught me that. And every single day I am grateful she gave me the chance to learn. I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to stand up against your own family to protect someone you love? What did that experience teach you? Share your story in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss future stories. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message today, share this video with them. Thank you for being here and for listening. Whatever challenges you are facing right now, I hope you find the strength to choose love, even when it is the harder path. Take care of yourselves and the people who matter most.